Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for April 2nd, 2021. I'm Benji Fisher, moderating the meeting, and also present are Michael Herschel, who's sharing his screen, presenting an issue about Olivero, Ben Mullins, Anne Mulgol, Emily Nouveau, Gaurav Malawat, Jennifer Witkowski, am I pronouncing that correctly? And Afer Shal. So Michael, if there's a particular Drupal issue, then please read the issue number for the sake of the recording and take it away.
Yeah, sure. I don't have that open. Give me just 1 second here.
Or I may have it.
Yeah, give me just 1 second.
Have secondary menus close on Blur? Is that the issue you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, and this is actually a Ben Mullins issue, so I'm gonna bring that up. So, hey Ben.
Sure.
So I also have Jen Matowski. Jen is I just invited her. She's one of the designers for Oliver. So hey Jen. So this right here, this is currently a stable blocker, and we could probably get it done, but what I'm looking for is I'm just basically looking for permission to keep this an issue, but I want to not make it a stable blocker, because right now we have a whole bunch of things to do, and if this is and in order to make Olivera the default theme for Drupal, we need to reach stable, and this is one of those things that we're just trying to yank out. And kind of do it later. So let me just explain the issue. Benji, do you have that issue number in front of you? Because
Yes.
I actually don't. Okay.
It's 3191692.
91692. And this is a follow-up issue that Ben created right here, and it has to do with basically the gist of it is that as you tab through these menus, after you tab out, should the menus close? So I'm gonna just demo that for you right now. So you can kind of see we have these drop-down menus right here, and you can see they work just like you would think they would with the mouse. I'm gonna start tabbing. If you tab, you can hit enter, and you can start tabbing around. Now keep in mind that if I open up another drop-down, the other drop-down will close, and that will kind of make sure that no drop-downs are obscuring anything else. But the issue that Ben highlighted is if we keep on going down, the menus stay open. And so that could be like solved by adding like a blur event and things like that. And I agree that this needs to be fixed, but right now I'm just trying to concentrate on other things. I personally think this is minor enough where it shouldn't be a stable blocker. I also want to say that if you're a keyboard user and you can hit the escape button, and your escape button will close everything, will close the top like that. So that's an option too. And so Ben put a note in there and said like, hey, if we take this to the usability meeting, we can kind of remove the stable blocker. And that is this issue. Are there any questions on this before or anything like that? Also note, I put a link for this right here. This is the current Olivero tugboat with some default content and a bunch of features enabled. I put this in the UX Slack channel. And for anyone listening to the to this recording, you can get to it by just typing in lb.cm/Olivero, and then that will load up, that will redirect to a tugboat link that has like the latest 9.2.x build and a bunch of default content and cool features where you can kind of like look at all the form styles and stuff. It's very useful.
So I noticed in the issue that it said that closing secondary menus on Blur is a popular enough pattern that most sites do this, and so users expect it. And I think, to me, if that's the case, then it's something that we should definitely do for stable.
Okay. Does anybody else have any thoughts?
An additional reason for keeping it for stable, as edge casey as it might sound, is that this does make it possible for there to be an accessibility focus visibility violation, because and I realize that, you know, this is not pointing out a common use case, but this results in a situation where an element could be focused underneath that menu, and then as a result the focus is not visible, and that's one of the AA requirements that we want to keep. So of course that could be addressed by making it blur if something under it was focused, but I believe that would be even more difficult than just having the menu close when it's on blur.
Okay.
So the menu will close when you tab out of the main menu, or what would be the logic behind it?
So there's a couple ways that we could implement this. Like, number one, we could have a blur event on the entire menu up here that says once you tab out of this whole menu, it closes. That would be kind of straightforward to do, or we could do it per drop down also. If we do per drop down, I think Ben suggested that we add like a little set timeout in there to, like, I don't know, like quarter second or something like that. So like say like, you know, you blur out of that, you know, the blur event will fire right when the focus goes out of that, and at that point give it a quarter second, and then it can hide. So those are two options. I would probably go with the latter one with the set timeout, but
I think so too, because I also notice if you open the menu and you just scroll down the page, it also stays. So even if you didn't use the tabs, they will stay there. So.
Yep. Okay. Well, I think that answers my question right there. So I'll update the issue. And I have one more issue for you all, but I think there's some other stuff that goes before this.
Yeah, so I had one that I wanted to share, and I'm glad to know that you have an additional issue. So I'll be sure to be mindful of digressions with this. So just a moment, I'll share my screen. And the issue for this is 3201641, and it's currently part of a contrib project that will be in core. This is for CK Editor 5.
And can you identify yourself for the recording?
Oh, yes. This is Ben Mullins.
Thank you.
And so this is for CK Editor 5, and something that is kind of new to a big difference between CK Editor 5 and 4 is that it's a lot more opinionated regarding what tags can and can't be allowed. So theoretically in CK Editor 4, you could allow only a bold tag and nothing else in your editor setup. That's not the case with CK Editor 5. There's many tags that are mandatory for it to work at all. And I'm going to show you what the current experience of that is, which is not particularly great. So these are the allowed HTML tags, and these happen to be the tags that are absolutely critical for CK Editor to function. So I'm just gonna get rid of one of these. We do save configuration, and then you're met with an error, which is obviously it's not just is it not adjacent to the area where the error is taking place, but it's not even on an open tab. Filter setups are very confusing already. So basically we want to have a way to make it clear that these always required tags are always required and will be required without this, I think, confusing and frustrating validation message being the only way of letting people know that. So I came up with 2 ideas that roughly that address this in slightly different ways. So the first is to use the form API. And when you go to the tab and you're able to limit the tags that CK Editor supports, there's an uneditable field that just makes it clear that these tags will be part, ideally it'll make it clear that these tags will be part of the allowed tags. And then these are the additional ones that are user configurable. So the pros to this is that it's, I think this could be pretty easily done with the form API. And the con is, I'm not sure if this would just be glossed over, or it might not be clear that it's a combination of these 2 inputs that create the sum of the allowed tags. And then the other approach that I thought of was something client side, which would be a little more complex and require some regex. But if JavaScript noticed that a mandatory tag was missing, you'd simply be presented with a warning of some sort. And the benefit there would be that one field, all the allowed tags are happening in one field. So there's no need to conceptually combine the 2. It reduces the risk of people just ignoring what's above it. And while it would still be possible to submit this without the required field, creating a loud warning would discourage people from doing it. And at the very least, warn them before they hit save and then get an error message at the top of the screen that's nowhere near the element responsible for the error. So yeah, those are kind of roughly the 2 approaches that I had in mind, either form API or client side. And I wanted to get thoughts, particularly if one of them seems like very much a bad idea, then we can rule it out and focus our energy on honing the other one. So yeah, I just want to open it up for discussion and get people's thoughts on this.
I have a follow-up question on that. So are you allowed to limit, like on those required tags, let's say the H5 right there, are you allowed to limit the attributes on that with CK Editor? And if so, how would that work with that disabled field in the previous example?
I'm not sure. So that's gonna make a huge difference. And so I'm writing that down as one of the things I got to find out. That's great. CK Editor is so different that.
I have a third suggestion.
Yes.
So let people submit whatever they want. Behind the scenes, make sure to include the tags required by CK Editor. And then if they've tried to remove H5, for example, then instead of an error message and making them go back and fill it out again, give them an information message. The following tags have been included because they're required by CK Editor.
Interesting. Yeah, that I think that should be one of the options. I'll prototype that up as well.
And I think that would sidestep the problem that Michael just pointed out.
Right. Okay, that's great.
I'm sorry if I missed that, but did you mention having another box that says required below or above this that never change and not editable?
So that was the first idea, was essentially doing that, which I mocked it up as a disabled field because I thought it'd be more likely to be visible than having it in the description or that kind of thing.
I do like that option for being just very clear. I think it has to be really frustrating if you're an editor and you can't see any distinction between the tags, and then you remove a couple and suddenly you're faced with an error without having had any way to know that in advance. So this is nice for providing the information up front.
Oh, that's true. That categorizing them as This is a way of distinguishing which ones are truly mandatory without having to do something wrong in order to know that. So that is a benefit. That's a good call.
Yeah, it removes a lot of the guesswork.
Yes.
It also like simplifies the additional things at the bottom, you know, like the additional allowed HTML tags. That's like stuff that you added, and that's nice to know as maybe like a site builder who's coming in after someone else. You know, I don't have to look through all the cruft that's, you know, there because it's there.
Yep. And I do have to look into how CK Editor 5 treats attributes. But if that were the case, I do know that we could make it possible via Drupal to have, if a tag were also in the additional allowed HTML tags, that could take precedence over the CK Editor required ones. So that would be no problem.
And if that's the way forward, I think you could put that into description. Like I personally would look into description and read that. And, you know, you can say you can override attributes of the required tags by adding them into the additional field, or maybe even change the label of that additional allowed HTML tags.
Right. Yep. The information could be right there. That's great. I think just with that bit of feedback, I'm strongly leaning towards the approach that's on screen now. Then the Form API one, but I'll certainly document the pros and cons mentioned for each of them. If I can hand things back to Mike, unless people have additional comments about this. This was very helpful. All right, sounds like we can.
I think that'll be a nice benefit. That's a pretty overwhelming list, and it'll be nice to split it out this way.
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Cool. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. So once again, my name is Mike Herschel. I'm talking about the Olivera theme. This particular issue right here is 3186349. And it has to do with some accessibility problems with the Olivero show and hide feature. But I'm going to talk specifically about some like little usability. I'm going to give like a little bit of story with the background on this and kind of show you what this issue is solving. We have a patch here that solves the accessibility issues, but it could potentially introduce a UX issue, which is why I'm here. And Ben, I'm super interested in your thoughts too, since you are a accessibility maintainer. So here we go. So I'm going to show you the right here. This is what's currently in core. So this is Drupal core right here with Olivera loaded, bunch of default content in there. And so what we're talking about right here is how this header shows and hides. So you can see there's some functionality. And this functionality, like the way that it works right now is you scroll down, it hides, and you scroll back up and it shows. But you can also kind of just toggle it on, toggle it off if you want, and then, you know, it'll stay that way until the next page load. The next page load, it'll kind of go back to its default show hide state. So this was identified by Andrew McPherson as an accessibility issue, and like he said, like we have a button over here that's like, you know, it gets hidden as you, and like when you scroll to the top, and that's confusing. There was a number of issues that you can read through right here. I ended up on a call with him just to discuss this, you know, because this is one of the stable blockers, and this is one of the major ones in my opinion. And we talked it through. We talked about some ideas, and the solution that we have here is that we're basically going to kind of make this button into like, we're going to give it a role of a checkbox. So it's going to be like almost like a little checkbox that marks this header as always open, or, you know, not always open, but only, you know, when as you scroll down. And we're also going to make that persistent, use some local storage to kind of remember that setting for a couple weeks. And so I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like right now, and where the usability problem is. So this is the tugboat preview of it right now. Let's see if I have this. I'm gonna post this in the chat right here. If anyone's interested, you can click on that and follow along. And all right, so you can kind of see it functions in the same way. If we were to look at the markup, you're going to see like some of the changes, including like, this button has like a role of a switch right here, and it remembers its setting based on like local storage and things like that. But part of the issue that I really want to talk about is that as this thing receives focus, it's always visible, where currently in core, if this has focus and you scroll up, it kind of just goes away. But right now, if you scroll up, it still has focus. And what's really interesting is if you do this, it appears to do nothing. And I agree, that's confusing as like all hell. So, but if you click out of it and it loses focus, then what we do is we basically set pointer events none and set the opacity 0. So it's still like in the accessibility tree, but you can't click on it, anything like that. So like, let's say we like load the page, you can't even get to it until you scroll down, unless you start tabbing. You can see we start tabbing over, and now you can run into this thing right here. So it's kind of a thing that you wouldn't run into unless you're tabbing, unless you're looking around, then you're like, hey, what's that? So that's basically the issue. So I don't really know the solution for this, because like obviously this is an accessibility issue, and but it's also a usability issue. And so I would love to hear thoughts on this. And if someone wants me to like, I know that this is like kind of complicated, and I just like explained this, and if you have thoughts or you want me to explain or have questions, please let me know.
So just to clarify, you're saying that the UX issue is specific to keyboard navigation, and that you could potentially keyboard navigate to something that's otherwise supposed to be unavailable in certain situations.
It's weird because it's not like unavailable. It is available. It still works, but you don't know it works until you scroll down, and that's a little confusing. And technically, it's also available for mouse users. Like for example, if I reload the page, scroll down, click on this, load back up, then I can do this all day long, and you don't know what the heck's going on. So that's like a mouse user potential, path to find it.
And is there a way to disable, like remove it when you're on top?
Yeah, so that's what we do right now, but that could potentially introduce accessibility issues. So like as it stands right now in Drupal core, like as I showed you, like the default thing, what it does is it just, I think, display or visibility, it uses visibility hidden to remove it from the accessibility tree. And that also like prevents you from getting to it, et cetera, like that. Now, a couple other things we could do, instead of using visibility hidden, we could just add like a disabled attribute and just disable the form, or disable the button at that point, and give it, and maybe so it won't even be able to get toggled at that point, but maybe could still receive focus. Those are some things that I've thought about in my head. I don't know if that would make sense from an accessibility point of view. So Ben, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. Andrew's been pretty busy. I've tried to ping him a couple times. He's been pretty busy. So I'm just trying to find ways to push this forward, because like obviously we want this to become the default theme. for 9.2, and our deadline is in about a month and a half.
So I think what's needed here is some sort of feedback to indicate what's different between the checked and the unchecked state. Is that right?
I don't know. Like, you tell me, and I don't even know what that feedback. I mean, like obviously we have the feedback that says like we go between the X and like the regular hamburger button. So that's like kind of like that shows the state change. But it doesn't really show what's happening unless you're scrolled down a bit.
Right, so that feedback is clear. So the problem is there's no feedback except the X goes to hamburger. Yeah, that's insufficient feedback.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe if while you were doing this, the background faded a little bit, would that be enough of an indication, or a dashed border around the whole region?
To me, I mean, that's a good question, Jen. I would love to hear your thoughts on this if you're still in this. Like to me, like it's not really a normal pattern, you know. It's not I really don't know, you know, like would that make that difference, you know?
Mike, can you give some more details about the current way that it's working? What makes it not accessible?
Yeah, give me just 1 second. Let me open that back up. So, and this is more of a question for Andrew, who identified the issue. So this is the current way it works right here. And basically there's a couple things that happen. Number one, the button just disappears from the accessibility tree. And number two, I guess it was unclear to him from a maybe a screen reader point of view on what the button does. I really don't understand that. I don't have maybe as much of a background as him.
Do you have could you share a link to the tugboat for this one?
Yeah, yep, I already did that. It's in the UX channel.
Oh, okay.
The most recent one right there.
Perfect.
And yeah, that so you can see both of the tugboat links right here. This is the current Drupal core, and this is a tugboat for the change. And it's actually like a little bit behind, but it has all that stuff in there. So the focus states aren't there and stuff, but.
So just to be clear, like on the proposed version that you have with the usability issue and the UX issue right now, when you scroll to the very top, that button is can still be visible, but it doesn't do anything if you click on it.
It doesn't have a visual. It doesn't have a visual. It doesn't tell you that it doesn't tell you what it does. It still works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so like it will still pin it open or close as you scroll down. But
when you're at the very top of the page and that button is visible, it looks like it doesn't do anything when you click on it, like it's not hiding.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Even though it's working.
Yep.
I have a controversial question. In order to make it stable, would it make sense to not have it for 9.2? The ability to access main menu from anywhere as you scroll down?
I thought about that, but the thing is, if we take it out, it's never going to get in. Like, and that's it, you know? And in addition to that, this is like one of those things that just like, I don't know, it adds like a certain level of like coolness and modernness to this, in my opinion. You know, I really personally like that feature. And I really do not want to take it out.
And what's the concern with having it be collapsible even when you're scrolled to the top. So just collapsing the large version.
I guess we could, like, so. But so what you're saying, if I understand properly, is that it would be collapsed. What, like if you hit this button, it would be collapsed. It would open and then be collapsed when you're even if you're scrolled all the way to the top. Like, number one, that would be like a little strange, but like we'd also potentially run into an issue where we're changing the state of this without like a user actually hitting the button. So for example, like the default state, of course, is this closed state as you scroll down. So obviously we don't want, we want to show this navigation by default. So, you know, we could have JavaScript easily like change that, you know, and hit like are you pressed and whatever and do that, but that might be like a little bit weird for that user. I don't know.
See, another thought, and this is definitely in the more brainstormy than something I think would be a solution, but to have it simply do something so it doesn't give people the impression that it's a broken control would be to make it the partial height version. And then once you start scrolling, then it would take on whatever the expected form.
So basically what you're saying is it would just like kind of take up this height right there.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. I wonder, yeah, that, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad solution, but it might also be like a little bit confusing, but.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm just, it would be less confusing than it doing nothing. So it'd be a step forward.
Like, I wonder if there's like a way to display a message that says like, you know, navigation pinned open after you scroll down, you know, navigation is now pinned open after you scroll down. Navigation is not pinned open after you scroll down. Like that's really like what could happen. But like,
I feel like if you have to have a message like that, then the UI is not clear enough. And then
yeah, yeah, I agree with that. Like, you know, and we could even like use JavaScript to like kind of like throw in you know, to use like, you know, the messages, you know, so we could have like something like this, that we could have it display a message here that says navigation pinned open after you scroll down, navigation pinned close after you scroll down, but we could only have that show if it's in the all the way scrolled up state or something like that, you know.
What about an SVG of a pin?
That's not a bad idea. All right, so you're talking about you're so all right, that seems like it might be a path, but let's maybe talk it through a little bit. I'm gonna write this down, except I can't find a pencil.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines that really the X and the 3 horizontal lines are the wrong indicators. I mean, the X suggests to me that something is gone, but when the X is present, there's more of it when you scroll rather than less.
It's interesting because at the same time, it's a normal pattern for an X to show up for navigation menus. Like this right here is a very normal pattern right here, right? And because we're doing something similar, showing and hiding the navigation, that to me makes sense. But I totally get like, but that makes sense in the context of, hey, I'm showing and hiding this navigation. But it doesn't make sense in the context of like, I'm pinning this navigation open to always be closed or something like that. So maybe, so what you're saying is instead of an X, have like a little pin icon. Because that's really what it is. It's pinned at that point.
And Benji's idea was a little different than mine, but it may very well be better. Is what I had initially thought was when it's in the full height, have an additional pin icon appear when it's pinned, and then when it's in partial height, have that be a smaller pin icon just to represent the fact that it's pinned, but it's.
No, like from a design standpoint, I don't necessarily want, like I wouldn't want, and Jen, you can override me here. I wouldn't want that pin to show up here, like at least by default, you know, maybe if it's focused or something like that.
Or here's another idea. Could you scroll down a little bit? I'm sorry, can you now open up the main menu? There's a little drop shadow that goes across that whole top bar.
Yes.
Now scroll up and the drop shadow goes away. What if we made that drop shadow appear in this state? I think that would be adequate feedback.
Let's open up developer tools and start messing around with that right here. That would be in something we'd have to worry about in high contrast, but that's something we can do. So what I'm doing right here, I'm just going to copy this drop shadow, what we have here, if I can find it in here. Where's that drop shadow? Right here it is. All right, so what you're saying is we would add it right here. So basically it would toggle on and off like that. That is not a bad idea right there. But the question is, yeah, so if it's pinned open, that drop shadow would always appear. And if it's not pinned open, which is the default state, it would not appear. So basically, as you're toggling that, you know, you're scrolled up, it would go like this, you know. You'd hit the button, it would go like that. You'd turn it off, it would go like that. I like that, but what does everybody else think? Including Jen, I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
I like that approach. I'm just thinking about what maybe Andrew would say about this, and he would probably say there needs to be a little bit more feedback besides the drop shadow. But
well, we could also do something, and like I'd love to hear Ben's thoughts on that. Like, yeah. So for high contrast, we can do a couple things. Like for high contrast mode, we can grow like say a transparent border or something like that. So there's like things that we can do in high contrast mode. For screen readers, I don't think it matters too much because you already get feedback. You already get feedback from this button right here, which has a row of switched, and then it's like aria checked. It has well, you can't see this right here, but there's like, you know, a row of switch and then aria check. So you already get feedback from the screen reader point of view. And to tell you the truth, like from Andrew's point of view, what we currently have without that drop shadow is good. So okay. And Andrew, like Andrew was very happy with that, as was Rain. I think Ben, you might have even been on the call when I had this in front of the accessibility office hours. And they were happy with it. So, but the question is just like that usability feedback right there. So basically we could have it toggle that drop shadow, but you know, only if it's you know, in that open state, you know. Does anyone else have thoughts on that? you can feel free to be negative. You can feel free to say like, this is a dumb idea, but
Yeah, I have thick skin. And besides, I'm a back-end developer, so I'm used to having my design ideas shot down.
Were you the person who mentioned this, Benji? I forget who initially had the idea of the drop shadow.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, cool.
The only other thing that I'm concerned about is the feedback of the user clicking the icon and nothing happening. Like, I still think that's kind of confusing. Like, it changes.
Well, it
The
will.
icon. Oh, go ahead.
The icon will change, but then the feedback will be that the drop shadow is added.
Okay. Okay.
Well, and
Oh,
or
yeah, yeah.
removed.
Okay. Depending on the icon that they click, like depending what state they're in. Okay. That makes
Correct.
sense.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Unless someone is against this or has other questions or concerns or something, I'm actually like, I think that's an excellent idea, and I'm happy with that. And Ben, if you think that would introduce any any accessibility things, you can also feel free to.
No, I mean, nothing comes to mind. I think
Cool.
it doesn't conflict with any of the accessibility fixes there. So
Okay. And I'll just have to make sure that I also like have some type of indicator within high contrast mode, because the box shadow will not show in high contrast mode, but that's easy. All right, cool. This is awesome. I was hoping for a fix that I liked.
Yeah, I know. This one's nice.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense, right?
Mhm.
Man, you people are all smart. All right, cool. I'm gonna stop my share.
Great, so that went really quickly. So we have 15 minutes left. Does anyone present have other issues they'd like to bring up? Hearing none, I guess we'll give you all back that 15 minutes. Thanks for coming, and hope to see many of you again next week.
thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.